Once upon a time, there was a research scientist, and he was determined to invent the ultimate adhesive. Working for years in the lab, he was really disappointed when he discovered that what he had created was an adhesive that did not stick. He shelved the project and went on to other things, but the adhesive that did not stick stayed in the lab. And a few years later, another scientist found it and came up with what he thought was a really clever use for this substance. He was so excited with his idea that he took it to, where else? Marketing. Now, I'm an old corporate marketing girl, so I can say this. Marketing is not always filled with the brightest bulbs. And at that moment, the scientist comes running in with his idea. Marketing, my guess is, was not very polite, and they explained to that scientist that they were in the business of selling things that stuck. They had no use for a product that did not stick. He should have been disappointed, but instead the scientist went back to the lab and he made up a batch of this adhesive that did not stick, because it had some really interesting properties, one of which was that when it was applied to paper, it left no residue. And so he made up these little pads and he distributed them to all of the secretaries of all of the executives in the company that he worked for, because he knew that while the executives thought they made the business turn, it was the secretaries that moved the business forward. And so he delivered these to the secretaries, and you know what? They got it right away. They obviously didn't have marketing degrees telling them there was no use for this product, because they figured it out. And they started leaving their bosses little notes with these pads. And after a while, their bosses came to them and said, you know what? I really like those. Can you get me one? And the secretaries called the scientist and asked for more, and he made up another batch. And this time he delivered it not only to the executives, but he delivered it to all of the secretaries of all of their major customers and major suppliers. And the second time, when people started running out and they started calling the scientist, he said, oh, I'm sorry. All orders for that product are now going through marketing. How would you like to be the marketing person on the other end of the call from the secretary of the senior vice president of the company that you work for, and how would you like to be able to tell her, no, we don't actually make that product that you love? And how long do you think it took before that product was in production? Today, there are over 600 different not brands, but 600 different sizes of Post-it notes. It is by far and away one of 3M's most successful products. And all because one scientist didn't take no for an answer, and number two, figured out that he needed to get to the secretaries. The lesson for small business owners is you have to figure out who your secretaries are, who carries your message forward. It's not always your customer. It may be the people that influence your customers, that know your customers. How do you find your secretaries? There are lots of places to look, but my favorite place is Rainmakers. Why? Because it's filled with a room full of people who get this, who know that what they need to do is find someone to be their secretary and to agree to be the secretaries for other people. You can find secretaries anywhere. At Rainmakers, we just make it easy.